One of my favorite country western songs is The River by Garth Brooks. I don't know how many of you have ever heard it, but it's one of my favorites. And when I put together the slideshow for my father for his memorial service, that was one of the two songs that I chose to use. The opening verse is as follows. You know, a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows. A dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes, trying to learn from what's behind you and never knowing what's in store makes every day a constant battle just to stay between the shores. I'm reminded of the many times that I've made car trips whenever I hear that across the United States, navigating territories we'd never been before. The first time my family moved from California to Maine, I was not a happy 13-year-old. My parents dragged me kicking and screaming. They were taking me from my childhood home, my church, my friends, my schools, everything that I knew in my small world, to a far off place I knew no one at all. And on top of all that, they made all the decisions on the trip, except what flavor of ice cream I wanted, which of course was vanilla. Maine was complete and total culture shock. Jeans were dungarees, purses were pocketbooks, and tennis shoes were sneakers. I didn't speak the right language. Besides all the strange names for things, I spoke differently and dressed funny by comparison to the kids in the new high school. And besides all of that, I felt totally alone. I felt like I was in a constant battle trying to move forward. How have you ever felt that way? It's easy to have tunnel vision and only see our perspective when we're facing a challenge or a change in our life. We never know exactly how a story, a movie, or a real life situation will unfold or end. And I admire the great adventurers who've risked their life to step into the unknown. Of course, as children, we all learned about Columbus, trying to decide whether the world was flat or round or not. Or how about the men that walked on the moon? They went there without knowing if they would ever really truly be able to return to Earth. I will never forget watching Felix Baumgartner jump from the edge of space, skydiving 24 miles safely back to Earth. I admire his stepping out into the unknown, but that doesn't mean that I really want to do it. Heck, I jumped out of a plane at 12,000 feet in tandem, and I loved it. It was exhilarating, but certainly I'll never try it at 24 miles up there. The thought of an unknown future can be terrifying. It's the sort of thing that can keep you up at night. We may have surprise parties, but they don't tend to enjoy throwing surprises at us in our life. We crave security and stability and clarity. We have a desire to know and control our future. We are uncomfortable in the space of the unknown. The unknown can be scary. We want to know what is coming next and how that will affect our future. We want to be able to plan and be prepared for everything. We don't like being in the dark. It's the not knowing that can cause us to know stress on a first name basis. We believe that if we know what is expected, it gives us a certain measure of control over our life. And there are so many unknowns. How long will I live? Will I have enough money to retire on? Will I be able to take care of my kids and their college education? Will I be laid off from work? Or will my money run out that provides for me currently? The question of the unknown go on and on and on. And do you feel like you are on an unknown destination journey? Maybe your unknowing destination is beginning retirement, or maybe it's just going to the grocery store, or you're in the middle of a transition and the world seems to be falling apart around you. And you're not really sure how it's all going to work out. And although you're trying your best to live by faith, you just want to be a little less worried right now. Jensen Franklin states, worry doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Worry can be the biggest enemy of peace and joy in our life. In a world where visionaries are praised, I typically feel a bit like the comedian Stephen Wright, who said, I'm a peripheral visionary. I can see the future, but only way off to one side. It's just not clear in front of me. Life is filled with unknowns, and that's never going to change. It's like the river. Too many times we stand aside and let the waters slip away till what we put off till tomorrow has now become today. So don't you sit upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide. We have to be willing to take chances. We have to jump into the boat and shoot for the rapids so we can see what is on the other side. More importantly, we have to face our fears. There's a story of a man who lived in the town of Ur. Ur was a large city situated on the shore of the Euphrates River in Egypt over 4,000 years ago. And according to the National Geographic, it was a bustling port of about 60,000 people. At the time, Ur was the center for the wealthiest empire on the earth. It was a center of commerce and trade and worship. The inhabitants were the first people to have their own written language. They were first to develop mathematics and to become experts in astronomy. Most of the population was well-to-do. Most lived in large homes with open courtyards, and an early form of plumbing was even evident when they excavated the area. Now, there once was a man by the name of Abe who lived in the land of Ur. In fact, many architects believe that Abe may have just very well been the person to introduce the Egyptians to mathematics and astronomy. Of all places to be, Ur was the place to be in Abe's day. After all, it was a happening place in 21 BC. Abe had everything he could ever want in his hometown of Ur. This was home. He was comfortable there. He grew up there. He knew every shortcut, and when he went to the grocery store, he knew everyone who ran into him, and he ran into them, and they knew each other. Life was routine and predictable and easy. At the age of 75, Abe received a message that he was not expecting at all. After all, he was getting ready to retire. He had had a good life. It was time to chill. But this message was one that he absolutely could not ignore. It was God telling Abe to walk away from it all. And the message wasn't only for Abe, it was for his whole entire family. This story is in Genesis chapter 12. Now, I've been calling him Abe, but really his name was Abraham. So here he is, 75 years old, being told, move on, get going. You can't stay here any longer. He didn't even have a map. He didn't have GPS, let alone a phone. There weren't any moving companies to call. Think about the challenges that Abraham must have faced just trying to convince all of his relatives that this was a good idea. Let's just pick up and move. Abraham didn't even know where he was going. The details were completely unknown, and people had to have watched him leaving thinking, Abraham is absolutely nuts. Yet he went anyway. And Genesis 12:4 says, so Abraham did as the Lord had spoken to him. Why would anyone leave security for the unknown? One possibility is that while he didn't know where he was headed, he did know part of why he was going and what would happen as a result. Verses 2 and 3 state, I will make you a great people. I will bless you and make your name great. You shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Wow, what an awesome promise God gave him. But I don't think those are the reasons that Abraham left. After all, what reason would Abraham have had to believe those things anyway? He was raised in a pagan culture. We know his father worshiped other gods. Abraham was raised in a home where idol worship would have been the norm. I believe there was only one reason Abraham would have believed these promises. Something happened that made leaving the familiars and stepping into the unknown all right. Abraham had to have an experience with God that so convinced him that leaving was a no-brainer. One encounter with God can absolutely change everything in our life. Nobody in their right mind would walk away from the things Abraham walked away from: financial security, relatives, immediate family, friends, money, comfort. For a reason we don't know, Abraham chose to follow God's directions. He was completely convinced that it was the right thing to do. For reasons that are not in the Bible, Abraham must have had a life-altering encounter with God. And because of that experience, he stepped out in faith to the unknown. All he knew was that God said, go to the land that I will show you. And Abraham stepped into the unknown because he had faith. In his book, Can We Talk to God?, Ernest Holmes tells us faith is not a dogma, a creed, nor a statement of being. It is a certain mental approach to reality. It's an affirmative approach as opposed to a negative one. It is agreement as opposed to a denial. Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics tells us faith is your consent. It is saying yes to the outforming of the creative process. You may think this is making faith too simple, but it is simple. There is nothing complicated about it. It deals with an inexorable force like turning on a light. It is as simple, but it is not easy. There is a discipline of consciousness required and the commitment to practice the presence constantly. Yet the truth is, faith is simply saying yes. Faith is your willingness to get into that boat and cruise the river not knowing what is ahead. You are divinely guided at each and every rapid and every curve, and when you leave the land you are familiar with, you enter the world of faith and trust. Faith in spirit doesn't allow us to walk unafraid into an unknown future. When life seems confusing, when the circumstances seem absolutely impossible for us, the future is unknown, the divine is there. In other words, you have to not only have faith, but trust as well. You have to listen to the small voice within and know that you are being guided. Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch Holocaust survivor. After hiding Jews in her home during World War II, she and members of her family were interned in Ravensbrück concentration camp. She was the only one of her family to survive. She said, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to an unknown God." Sometimes we find ourselves in places or times where we have no other choice but to trust. It's in those times that our faith has the opportunity to deepen to a depth we have known before or never known before. Even though we don't know what the future holds, we don't have to enter it afraid. Author John Kavanagh tells of a time in his life when he went to Calcutta to work on 3 months at the House of the Dying. He went thousands of miles from the United States to find direction in his life. The first morning he was there, he met Mother Teresa. She asked him, "What can I do for you?" And John Kavanagh asked her to pray for him. "What do you want me to pray for?" she said. He responded, "Please pray that I have clarity." How often have all of us asked for clarity? She responded to him with a very firm, "No, I will not do that." When he asked why, she said, "Clarity is the last thing you're clinging to and must let go of." Kavanagh commented, "She always seemed to have the clarity he was longing to have in his life." Mother Teresa laughed and said, "I've never had clarity. What I have and what I will always have is trust." So I will pray that you trust God. When we get in that boat for our river ride, we must trust that there won't be any leaks in it. We must trust that we've got the right equipment to help us get through where we're going. And we trust that we will be ultimately arrive safe because we surrender and trust that God guides us. Several years ago, I decided to take a rafting trip with friends on the American River in Northern California. It was my first major rafting trip, and I chose it because it contained some number 5 rapids. That means they're pretty hard and pretty swift and pretty exciting. Our guide explained to us that we would be entering a portion of the river within the first couple of miles that were 5 rapids. She told us what to expect, what our job was, and that she was our guide and would get us safely through the challenge. We just needed to trust her. She knew what she was doing. And we were off and rowing. In retrospect, I now realize that in our ordinary life, when we enter unknown challenges, it's like that rafting the river. That we may not know what lies ahead, but our job is to pray, to trust, and to have faith that we will be guided along the way. We're told by Ernest Holmes, if we know that God is for us, who can be against us? Therefore, there must come a trust so great that if ill winds blow, the only thing is shaken is the external. So each and every day as we journey into the unknown, we must remember that God is always with us. We need only trust the divine by using prayer to deepen our faith and grow our oneness with each other. The final verse and chorus of the river states, "There's bound to be rough waters, and I know I'll take some falls, but with the good Lord as my captain, I make it through them all. Yes, I make it through them all. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. Like a bird upon the wind through the waters are my sky. I'll never reach my destination if I never try. So I'll sail my vessel till the river runs dry. May your and journeys into the unknown always be filled with trust, faith, and love, and may your rivers never run dry. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours. And so it is. Amen.